fact that NBA free agency got going today, and what everybody presumed was going to happen did. Jalen Brunson got the bag, $104 million deal with the New York Knicks. 25-year-old guard averaged 16 and 5. Really showed out for Dallas when Doncic was out, when the playoffs got going. So he moves to New York. Got to be a difference maker at that kind of pay scale. Bradley Beal, as everybody anticipated here, opts out, then got a $251 million 5-year max deal, according to the agent. The 10-year vet turned 29 2 days ago. Happy birthday. Likely become the franchise's all-time leading scorer next season. Blazers guard Anthony Simons tells ESPN, the agent for, I should say, that his client, who played well last year, 4-year, $100 million extension to stay in Portland. He turned 23 this month, averaged a career-high 17 per game last season. With Dame out, he got a chance to shine, and shine he did. Bobby Portis returns to Milwaukee, 4-year, $49 million deal. He declined a $4.5 million player option ahead of free agency. Smart move. 27-year-old averaged better than 14 and just over 9 boards a game last year as he started 59 games. The agent for P.J. Tucker tells The Athletic his client is finalizing a 3-year, $33.2 million deal with the Sixers. That will be his 4th team in 4 years. He opted out of his player option with Miami. Pat Riley called the 37-year-old vet, who is so well respected, a cornerstone player after the Heat season ended. Kendrick Perkins kind enough to share some time on what's been a very busy day. Always appreciate you, my friend. And I'm interested in the team that you felt made moves that you thought, yeah, I get it, I like it, I see it. Who is that?
Well, first, Scott, appreciate you having me on. The first thing was the Philadelphia 76ers. And here's why. When we look at the NBA, in my opinion, the most important position in the league right now is the wing position. And who did Daryl Morey go out and sign? He went out and signed Daniel House, and now he's finalizing a deal to get P.J. Tucker. Both of those guys are two-way players that bring a certain type of tenacity that you have to surround Joel Embiid and especially James Harden with. Guys that can knock down three-point shots, guys that plays well off the ball offensively and defensively. Both of those guys are pests. So when I look at the Philadelphia 76ers, it wasn't major moves, but it was minor moves that they needed at the wing position. Now also, going down the line, the Milwaukee Bucks, right? When you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, yes, they have Giannis. Yes, they still have their big three attack. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, all of these players, right? All those three players. But most importantly, they signed back the fan favorite, Bobby Portis. 4-year, $49 million, which was a steal in my opinion. Now you bring back Bobby, a guy that you could use in a starting lineup or as a 6-man type of role, a guy that's capable of coming in and giving you 15 points and 10 rebounds, a guy that when you decide to go small and move Giannis to the 5, he's able to stretch the floor. And then also, an underrated player that they got too, Joe Ingles. Right? They signed Joe Ingles, and I think that is a great deal. I know he's coming off an ACL injury, but he'll be fine by the month of December or January, and he's another guy that could come in, take pressure off of Drew Holiday for us being a facilitator. He stretches the floor. He shoots a high percentage from the 3. He's also a feisty defender at the wing position. The Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers, in my opinion, were the biggest winners today.
Yeah, of course, Ingles tore that ACL in the winter and then was traded. And I like that pickup too. The Bucks already love the 3, and Ingles can certainly shoot it. Now, these are positives. Teams get money, they're going to spend it. Sometimes they sit on that dry powder, man. They just want to throw that money. And I know some teams maybe have you wondering, what are we doing here? Who's that?
It's the New York Knicks. And look, I like Jalen Brunson.
Right,
I like Jalen Brunson. He's a hell of a player. And yes, he deserved the money. But it was all the extra leading up into this. And Scott, I want you to think about this for a second. Kevin Durant and his manager requested a trade today. And the New York Knicks, although it could have been a 1% chance they could have landed Kevin Durant, they were solely sold on landing Jalen Brunson that they're not even thinking about arguably fixing up a deal to land arguably the best player in the world. Scott, can you make that make sense to me for a minute? Like,
No,
seriously, what world are we living in?
Only thing I can say, Perk, is he could have gone to New York, and he did, and he chose a different borough to play in Brooklyn the first time around. So maybe they feel like, look, fool me once, shame on me. Maybe they didn't want to be fooled twice. I can't look, and you're talking to the wrong guy, because I'm waving the Durant flag and always have been, man. He's as talented as anybody in the world. We'll see where he lands next. That'll be gigantic news, obviously, when it happens. Perk, I appreciate you, man. We're stepping aside for a bit, so you be good until the next time we cross paths, okay?
All right, Scott, thanks. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Big Perk in the building. All right, more news around the NBA will come when these guys agree to terms. For the moment, they've not. Zach LaVine, James Harden among the key free agents looking for the big deal. We know what happened with Harden. He opted out trying to free up some money there in Philadelphia. DeAndre Ayton, that'll be a big one. Miles Bridges, who incidentally was arrested Wednesday, booked for a felony domestic violence warrant. Colin Sexton, also a restricted free agent. Starting center still on the board. Mitchell Robinson, Yusuf Nurkic. And yeah, Loon, get the bag, Loon. As it relates to the NBA, Adrian Wojnarowski reporting Kevin Durant has requested the Nets to trade him. Last August, of course, he signed a 4-year extension, which in theory would tie him to Brooklyn through the 25-26 season. But contracts in the NBA, if you're a star player, don't matter at all. You don't want to do it? You got the power to say, I don't want to do it. Adrian Wojnarowski, speaking of power. Woj, thanks for taking the time to visit with me here. How'd we get here?
I think Kevin Durant, Scott, I think from the moment he came to Brooklyn with Kyrie Irving and the expectations of having walked away from that Golden State team, I think in the end they were overwhelming. The disappointment, all the things that led to this group underachieving, from injuries to the vaccine mandate this season. And listen, part of it too, and you talk to people around Kevin Durant and the Nets, Golden State winning the championship this season, and just the flood of criticism and second guessing that landed on Kevin Durant, I think it contributed to a tipping point. He wanted to get Kyrie Irving a long-term deal in Brooklyn, wanted to help him get him that. He wasn't able to. And I think once Irving opted back into that deal, Kevin Durant hadn't talked to the organization in weeks, and neither, I think, Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving, since Kyrie opted into the deal, have been in communication. There was a sense of inevitability around the Nets and around the league that this day was coming, that Durant was going to ask out, and then today he called Joe Tsai, their owner, and he asked out.
Well, just real quickly, I think there were people that initially thought, oh, wow, Kyrie opts back in, then Durant asked for a trade, connected the dots, and thought, oh, he wants to get away from Kyrie. That's not what this is.
Kevin Durant's going to have to talk at some point about this, but I do think, the criticism that came with, you traded Steph Curry and that group you had there for Kyrie Irving. Obviously, investing in Irving as a partner, it was a mistake here. I mean, if the goal was to win and win championships, it's been a mistake. And so while I think the relationship, has remained pretty close, and he certainly fought to keep him here, even with 4 years left on his deal, there's almost a sense, Kevin, in the league now, you're entering the transfer portal. I want out, and I'm asking out now.
That's just nuts to me as an aside here, Woj. I got other stuff I want to get to. I just don't know in the league anymore. Like, you got a 4-year deal. It doesn't matter. If you're a superstar player, just like, I'm not going to do it. How can you function as a business if this is how it goes?
Yeah, the one thing that having 4 years left on his deal does, Scott, is it gives the Nets a lot of leverage in how they can trade.
I get that.
Kevin Durant, right? They're able to send him almost anywhere they want to, because even small market teams who otherwise would never have access to a Kevin Durant unless they drafted him know if we trade for him, he's got to play here. He's under contract for 4 years. He loves basketball too much.
Unless he doesn't want to. And we've seen that happen with players in the past couple of years. Look, Durant's, he's my favorite player to watch. I'm not anti-him. I just think at some point, this is a whole other conversation. Where do trade talks stand at the moment? What do we know?
A tremendous ferocity tonight in the Brooklyn front office. The level of intensity of the volume of calls, the number of teams. I had a couple teams, Scott, tell me tonight that they did something they had never done before, that they called and made an offer to Brooklyn, and they called back later in the day, in the evening, and made a better offer without Brooklyn countering it. And they said, listen, we know this isn't necessarily great business,
right?
But that's how badly teams want Kevin Durant and want to make sure that if this process does move quickly, and knowing how many teams are in it, that they're making competitive offers. And there's never quite been a player of Durant's stature at this point in his career available for a trade, certainly in the modern era. And so Brooklyn, listen, they intend to try to get back, something of a historic haul. They look at what the Clippers had to pay for Paul George. They look at what the Lakers had to pay for Anthony Davis. They want more than that.
And they should. This is a transcendent talent, arguably the greatest scorer on the planet. And so it's fascinating, Woj, because we're getting, we're in the middle of free agency, but there's a bunch of teams that are like, we didn't have any clue this guy was going to be available. Now, theoretically, he is. So how much business around the league is essentially being put on hold while teams take their best swing here?
Well, listen, I think, you look at the Atlanta Hawks as an example. They were a team that I think would have loved to be involved in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. And they made a trade yesterday, giving up 3 first-round picks and a pick swap for DeJounte Murray in San Antonio. So think of that. Three unprotected first-round picks for DeJounte Murray, who's a fine young player, made his first All-Star game. What is Kevin Durant worth? But if you're Atlanta,
sure,
you gassed your assets there, not knowing that this all was going to come a day later. And so I don't know if it's necessarily holding up business in the league because, free agency at this point, I think we kind of know all the key players out there are going back to their teams at some point here. But it has really created a frenzy unlike, I think, anything we've seen. It's only been several hours. It's going to play out here over the weekend.
I could keep going, but you've already been off your phone for 7 minutes, so I want to let you get to that. You know how much I appreciate and respect your time, so I'll say thank you. Until next time, Woj, be well, all right?
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you.
No doubt. Adrian Wojnarowski.